y'all need to listen up. This is real life, y'all doing dumb shit just for views and likes. Any topic, you know that we on it. No matter the subject, you know that we on it. Isaac Coda when the kid block, yo, we can't stop, man. Y'all know we the baddest. We give it 100, no capping. Welcome to Stop the Madness.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Stop the Madness. I am your host, The Kid Plot, my co-host
Isaac Coda. We back.
And today we have a special guest in the building. We are super excited to have him. Who we got, Isaac?
Hey, today we have the lead attorney in the building.
Sir.
Yeah.
Welcome, my boy. Yeah,
Thank you
welcome.
so much. Really appreciate the invite, guys. Super hyped up to be here.
No,
Awesome.
Hey, for those who don't know, I've known Lead for a few years, and I remember we had a brief conversation, and Lead told me, he's like, Isaac, I think I'm done with doing law. I'm about to call it a day and retire. I was like, so what are you going to do? He was like, I'm going to do YouTube. And I was like, oh, okay, that sounds cool, like a good hobby. He's like, yeah, I bought some equipment. I'm going to do it. 3 years later, the lead is the lead attorney. I had no idea.
That man had a vision and said, I'm not looking back.
It's unbelievable. I feel like I know a celebrity before he became a celebrity. You know what I mean?
To be honest, I didn't expect it either. You know, I have been practicing law all those years, and I was just done. My heart wasn't in it anymore. I said, well, let me try this. You know, let me see what's up. Because I'm 46 now, so it was a few years ago, but I didn't really know about social media or anything. I didn't really know the possibilities. I'm still surprised. You were giving me game about the Instagram. It's so much to learn.
Look, credit to the lead, because he schooled me up on this YouTube game, and he told me, Isaac, just get a camera and start recording.
Yeah.
And lo and behold, it's been a reality. Like, things move pretty quick, and when you put on good content and people are interested in good topics, and it's pretty fun. Like, I'm enjoying myself.
And it's amazing how each platform its own individual thing. Like, for example, 100%. You can have a big YouTube, but your Instagram not that big. You can have a big Instagram, but your YouTube's not that big. You can have a big TikTok. Very rarely do you have every single platform be huge. Especially, when you give more attention to one, that's the one that blows up. And then the other ones are like, and then you're kind of like, you know what, I'm going to just stick to the one that I already know how to do. And then you don't really give the other one any attention because that one platform has taken off, like your YouTube has.
100%.
So me and him are trying to get to your level.
Man, this studio is better than mine. Hey. Y'all got all these. I got one camera, 1080p, one mic. Y'all are killing it.
I was joking on Lead. I was like, bro, you still use your Apple, for your phone? Like, I'm over here like, hey, we got to get this equipment in here, whatever. My man's doing his live streams with his damn.
But that goes to show you that the content is what matters.
You know what?
He's got AirPods and one camera, and he's doing better numbers. And we got 4 cameras, we got 3 mics, we got a huge logo.
Hey, don't worry. All you need is $1 and a dream.
That's it.
Like
That's
Biggie
it.
said. All you need is $1 and a dream. But hey, one of the exciting things about having Lead here, you watch his content, and you can easily see you're not afraid to talk about whatever topics that come across your way.
Right.
And we chatted a little bit. We were talking about the passport bro situation.
Yeah,
right? And I don't know. Do a lot of your followers know that you speak Spanish?
Yeah, they do. Passport Bros is pretty big in the space that I'm in on YouTube. I have a lot of black men and a lot of black women that follow me. But Passport Bros right now for black men in our community, it's a very big topic. A lot of black men are not satisfied with their dating options. They think that these women are too hard to get. They're requiring too much. Maybe they're a little bit too masculine. And then when they travel, they experience a different type of woman. And both of y'all are well-traveled, and y'all know that, cultures are different. Women are the same, but they're different too because they're in different cultures. Mannerisms are different. How they act with men, how they relate to men is different. And so when you get out of the United States for the first time and you get this taste of other women or how other women can be, it's an experience that these men will never forget.
Well, all my life, I've never dated a black woman. Like, I don't discriminate at all, right? But as far as a relationship, I've never had a relationship with a black woman. And I was just curious on your take. So, coming from a Hispanic, Latino background, it's known within the culture that a typical traditional Hispanic woman will cater to you, right? So, you know, you come home from work, she's gonna have dinner ready for you. I had an ex-sister-in-law, 3 kids, worked a full-time job, husband's in the house by the time she gets home, and guess what? She got in the kitchen and she cooked food for the entire family after a full day of work, right? And so, I'm just curious, is that in the black community, African American community, what is the traditional structure of the female relationship, how they act, how they treat their men? What is that kind of background like?
Yeah, I think it used to be that way. But, in 2023, a lot of young men are finding that it's just not that way anymore. Young men in their 20s, early 30s, it's really kind of like being in a relationship with, 2 of the same kind. So no one is really taking on any specific gender roles. Everybody's working. No one's really saying, okay, it's your job to cook or it's your job to clean. Now, of course, as the man, it always falls on us to pay the majority of the bills. But then when you look at the other side, that expectation really isn't there.
If you can get the mic a little closer, please.
Oh,
Just
okay,
a little
I got
bit.
you.
There you go. Appreciate it. Go ahead.
Thank you for letting me know
No
that.
problem.
Yeah, I mean, this is real nice. I'm not used to these microphones like that or anything.
Because you're dropping gems right now, so we want to make sure they can hear you.
We catch everything.
I appreciate that. So yeah, the expectation really isn't there. But when you go to other cultures and you see how different women are, it is eye-opening. I remember the very first time I went to Mexico, and I had taken this girl. We were at like lunch or something in just a little restaurant, and I ordered this. You can say this pitcher of watermelon juice. And she brings the waitress brings the pitcher, and I pour myself some watermelon juice. And right when I pour it, the girl kind of grabs my hand because I already poured it, and she took a straw and just put it in there for me. And then as I drank it, she would refill my drink.
Ding, 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 ding. Like,
And
wow.
you're like, what the hell is? I've never had a woman in the States, refill my drink or be so attentive to, unwrap my straw and put it in there for me. And it's the little things. A lot of times women think men really desire these huge, big, displays of love, but they don't really realize sometimes it's just the little things like that that'll really help a man feel like a man, especially if he's doing his part anyway, being respectful, paying the bills, stuff like that, the typical nice guys type of stuff.
Jimmy, you dated, I take it, mostly Latinas?
Mostly Latinas, but I have dated black girls before.
Did you see a difference?
I did.
Okay.
So Latinas are definitely a little more attentive. They definitely are on top of making sure that their man or their boyfriend has, everything that they need or want. And not that the African American woman wasn't like that to an extent, but I noticed there was a little bit more. The difference that I noticed mainly when I dated a black girl was more she was more loudmouth than the Latina was. And I know Latinas could be spicy, but she was a little bit more loudmouth, like more in your face whenever there's an issue, a little bit more
aggressive,
combative. You know what I mean? Not as the easiest way to put it. The Latina was more agreeable than the African American woman. She was not as agreeable. She was more on the combative, on the defense or aggressive type of demeanor. So I think that would be the difference that I noticed the most. Now, obviously, I haven't dated every black woman in the world, but the ones that I have, I've dated like 3 in my life, and all of them were not as agreeable as the Latina women that I've dated.
Well, I mean, talking about passport bros, like I don't know. I don't consider myself an ex passport bro because I'm married, right? But I did travel, and I did notice, like, man, for the money you make in the States, especially when we're talking about Latin American countries, you're talking about Colombia or Dominican Republic or El Salvador, any of these countries, you show up, $2,000-$3,000 a month, in those countries is significant income.
Yes.
And it's just kind of here in the States. If you make significant money in the States, it opens more opportunities for the type of females that you have access to. But over there, it's a different vibe. Like, if you show up and you can take a girl that would never have the opportunity to go to these places or get on a boat or do these things, she's gonna treat you like a king. Like, it just works out that way. So he is, for $300 on Delta with some Sky Miles, you're in Colombia and you spend a G for a weekend, and you could have the most amazing time. That if you go to Miami, it's gonna cost you $6,000, $7,000, $8,000, $9,000 to have that same experience.
Right. And it's going to be a lesser experience. That's the thing, because say you're a basketball player. I think Gilbert Arenas, ex-basketball player, he was just talking about why it's better, at least for him, just to pay for it than it is to like get in these relationships. If you are a basketball player and let's just say you're willing to spend tons of money on a woman, well, that opens up your options in terms of how the woman looks, but it doesn't really make her more feminine, right? She might look more feminine, but is she going to do the little details now that you're spending all this money than if you were making less and got a less attractive woman? It really, your amount of money, it seems, it'll increase the options that you have in terms of a woman's attractiveness, but it's really hard to buy that femininity, right? Because let's say you get a nice little 28-year-old, if you're Gilbert Arenas, and you've got her on the yacht. She's looking great, but she still wants to be pampered. She still wants you to take her on the nice dinners, buy her the nice dress, the nice shoes. You're like, when does the femininity come in? She's like, well, I'm going to give you some ass. But what does that have to do with, putting the straw in and refilling your drink, right? So when you go to another country, it will open up options that even if you had tons of money in the States, you couldn't get, because they have a different level of, I don't want to say femininity, but their culture, their upbringing is much different. They really cater to them.
The cater, that, I've had scenario, I'm dog sick, and guess what? She's called out of work, and she's by your side, taking care of you, and like, it might have been the beginning of the relationship, but man, she took care of me from 8 o'clock in the morning, 12 o'clock at night. And before I knew it, I was like, oh, this is something different right here.
I think feminism is the cause of that in America. What do you think? Do you think that feminism is what caused the women catering to men situation to literally not be really existent here?
Yeah, I think it's a part of it. I think another huge part is just that women have more options in the workforce. Women in college are doing better than the men. Women in post-grad are doing better than men. And it's not like they need a man like they needed a man in the 40s and 50s and 60s. So a lot of times as men, we want to look back into yesteryear and say, oh, well, I want a relationship like that maybe my parents had, or, Leave It to Beaver and all that. But if we're honest, a lot of times there was dependency in those. And really the dependency was kind of both sides, because women had their gender roles in terms of washing and cooking and cleaning. A lot of men in those times, they didn't know how to do anything for themselves. They knew how to work, but they didn't know how to cook for themselves. They didn't know how to iron. And so both genders needed each other. Right. Nowadays, 2023, here in Atlanta, you get a black girl, man. She's making $117,000. She's buying, she's driving around the little C-Class. She's got a little poodle that she, wheels around in Whole Foods. Right. It's not like she needs a man anymore. And so because there's not that dependency, and, we talk about social media as well with the dating apps, their options as a woman in today's age just seems unlimited. And so they're not having to do all of the catering that maybe their mothers or their grandmothers did to really make a relationship work. It's much more, what makes me happy, as opposed to, let's form a partnership and a team.
And that's the difference with these other countries that we mentioned that are not, as rich as the United States is those women have more of a need for a man, more dependency for a man. And that's where the catering comes. That's where you feel like a king comes into play, because those women are not in the same position as the women in America, and that's why a lot of these, like you said, that's why they go out to these other countries and they'll look for women from another country, because they're the ones that are able to provide what it is that men typically are actually looking for, if we're honest.
Yeah, I mean, I remember when I first got my license, I had a good buddy of mine. He's like, man, you're going to be an attorney, and you're going to meet all these hot female attorneys, and da-da-da-da-da. Bro, that never happened. Like, I mean, in 12 years of practice, the paralegal. Forgive me. The paralegal way hard. Dominican, Venezuelan paralegal, maybe. Yeah. But like,
not a lawyer.
As far as attorneys,
because those attorneys are going to have the same attitude and demeanor as you.
No, but I'm just saying, like, physically, like a hot female attorney, I never came across.
That's normally not a career choice for them.
Okay, maybe so. But one of the things, me and my wife have this discussion all the time. And, I give credit to my wife, because for me, she keeps it as real as possible. She's like, look, if you was a garbage man, me and you wouldn't be together.
I mean,
it's facts, right? Like,
all right, and if your girl was 80 pounds,
exactly,
you probably wouldn't be with her.
Exactly. If she's 300 pounds,
or 300
there's almost like a social contract between us. Like, hey, she takes care of herself. She looks good. She's like, if it wasn't you, whoever I would commit myself to would have to have a certain standard, because guess what? I have a certain standard for myself, and that doesn't mean. And in my case, I said, I don't need a female that makes what I make. I don't need a career woman. I pay my bill. Like, you're not going to help me.
Men and women don't look for the same thing. So it's simple. We go ahead.
But there's some men that want a female that is career oriented and does make a good amount of money and have a 2-income household.
I think that is the minority.
Really?
I don't think that is nowhere, not even half. Because let me ask you a question. Do you care about a woman that has a career?
In my case, but if I make $50,000, $60,000, I want a wife or a partner that makes $50,000, $60,000, and together we can buy the house and we can get the car and we can.
But let me ask you this: in your position right now,
no. For me,
you don't care.
Once I had a license,
exactly.
I didn't even know.
Lee, based on where you're at right now, do you care how much the woman that you may be looking for makes?
I don't care how much she makes, but I do want her to be at a certain level.
Okay.
A lot of men, the men who end up getting screwed in divorces are the men who enter a relationship where, they're up here and the woman is down here. They're the attorney and she's working at the Foot Locker, right? Because that's when alimony comes in. That's where you get raked over the coals in terms of child support. That's when the property division isn't equal. If you can get someone that's a little closer to you, you're going to have a better time in divorce court. Also, it's even apart from divorce court, a lot of men's lives are ruined because they get with trashy women. These women will make up lies. They will ruin their reputation. They will put on false charges. If a woman is working at Foot Locker, no shade to Foot Locker, but she might not have a lot to lose. Whereas if she's more of a office worker, more of a professional, she's going to take her career more seriously, and she might not wild out on you as quickly as the person who has nothing to lose.
So, but let me ask you this:
I was going to say, would you want a career woman? Like,
right?
Say if she is an office worker, she is a paralegal. Would you want someone who's 9 to 5 working every day?
Here's the thing, I was married for 10 years, and my wife didn't work. And you would think that would be nice because you would come home and she's always there, right? It was not nice in reality. Because if the woman doesn't work, and particularly in our situation because we didn't have any kids, she didn't have anything to do. So she played a lot of tennis. And then when I would come home, she's got all this pent up energy and she wants let me talk about this, let me do that, let me do that. And when we come home, as an attorney's like, we don't want to
be on the couch and watching TV.
Exactly. That's exactly right. So our levels of energy were not proportionate. It would have been better if I come home and I'm a little bit tired, and honestly, she comes home and she's a little bit tired, and so we're more of a balance, as opposed to her just, going out and shopping. Or doing whatever she's doing during the day. A lot of times people don't understand that when you're not working, the world is still working. And so if you have a woman and she's not working, it can kind of be a lonely existence because her friends are at the job. She's at home. Now, if she has kids, she can tend to the kids, so that takes up a lot of her time. It takes up a lot of her energy. But if she's not working and she doesn't have any kids, she can she's not going to really grow as a person.
So I think it's okay for, the woman that I'm dating to have a job. Mm-hmm. As far as a career woman or a professional, the reason why I'd rather her not have or be a professional in a particular, trade is because normally career women or a professional woman will have traits that men have. I've seen that with a lot of career women, especially women that went to college for a master's or a PhD. They'll have these masculine traits that I don't like. And that's the reason why I think them having a job, part-time, even a full-time, I would be okay with a girl making $30,000, $40,000 a year because she's still going to have a 30 hours a week, 40 hours a week job. And she's still going to be she can still be in her feminine because typically she's still depending on me. Then if a woman that's 100% independent, typically that comes with masculine traits. It doesn't always have that, but typically it does. And I think that's where you'll end up running into the issue of her not catering to you, her not making sure you have your meal, at night when you get off of work, because she gets off of work at 6 p.m. and she gets home and you're like, damn, we're going to have to Uber Eats. Or we're going to have to go out to eat because how's she going to do it if she's working too, right? So it's one of those things where I think that a career woman, if her focus is her career, I think that's going to put in jeopardy or it's going to hurt the relationship a little bit for like a marriage. If we're talking about a marriage, that's my opinion.
I mean, I always said I have 3 requirements. Stay sexy. So go to the gym, do whatever you got, stay slutty in the bedroom, and take care of me in the household. Outside of that, you don't got to do shit. Like, That's me.
Yeah.
That's me. I don't need you to make no money. I don't there's nothing you're going to do that's going to change my life. If you disappear tomorrow, I'm going to do what I'm going to do.
Of course.
If you're here, great. So those were my requirements.
Right.
Now,
that's the thing. You have a woman that's completely in her feminine. Because
that's what I wanted also.
That's what most men want.
Right.
That's the point.
Okay.
That's the point.
Fair enough.
Because if she didn't do all the things you just said, you wouldn't be happy.
Fair enough.
You see what I'm saying?
I would, but it goes back to my point. My previous marriage, I was married at 21. Mm-hmm. We both worked. She worked, and it failed. The marriage failed, and Our income, everything we had was based on both incomes. Mm-hmm. So I needed someone, like we couldn't afford the things that we had if we didn't have both incomes, right? Mm-hmm. So, you're successful, he's successful, I feel like I'm fairly successful. The dynamic's a little bit different, right? I don't, in the case, he doesn't need a career woman. Like you don't need, like, your life changes zero if she has a career or not. But if you get home and she takes care of you, and she treats you the way you want to be treated, and she looks the way you want her to look,
golden.
Like, if she brings in $3,000 more a month, is that really gonna change anything for you? No. But for the average Joe, like, hey, I'm a postal worker, I'm a policeman, I make $50,000, $60,000, $70,000 a year. Man, I don't want an extra charge under me that I have to take care of. In today's day, you need a female that is career oriented, that does want to work, and this. So it's a challenge based on your position. Like, I don't think it's hard to say, I just want a feminine woman to do this, unless you're a passport bro and you bring one over from the Dominican Republic. It is a challenge. Like, it's hard to find a female that's going to say, yeah, I'll stay home and I'm going to live in a 2-bedroom apartment for the next 15 years because, that's all we can do. It's hard to find a female that's going to accept that.
Yeah, you're really not going to find it. I think the average man in this country makes like $46,000, $48,000 a year. And it's just
I think it's lower than that.
Yeah.
I think it's
around there.
Is it around that? Okay.
Yeah. And I just don't think it's enough for a woman to say, okay, well, this is my life. I'm just going to get with a guy making $48,000 a year.
Well, let me ask you this. Talking on passport, bro, me and Ply had this conversation the other day. Was the question, I didn't know he schooled me on the term 304's.
Real quick, I know you're about to go into that. Average annual income for Georgia for a man, 26,000.
I was talking about for the nation.
Oh, for the nation. Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, but
okay, my bad. Go ahead.
Well, we had a conversation. I did not know what a 304 was. I was like, why they keep calling them 304s? And he explained hoes, right? Mm-hmm. And I said, in my opinion, so you can go to these countries, Colombia, Venezuela, Dominican Republic, and you can pay for a beautiful female to hang out with you, and you can have the most amazing time, and you can take her on the boat, and you can whatever you want for a few $100. Is that different than me meeting a 304 where I got to take her to the nice restaurant, or take her to the nice club, or pay to go on the boat, whatever, so I can get a piece of ass? Plot is of that tells you how many years I've known this dude.
Exactly.
I've known him
calls him by my government name.
Yeah, his government name. But Plot is of the position. They're completely different because one, you pay for sex. Like there's an exchange of I pay you for sex, we have sex. And the other one, it's a little bit more engaged and getting to know each other. I'm of the position I think is exactly the same. You could put different colors on it, but at the end of the day, I am paying to get panties.
Before he answers, I got to give my side now.
Okay.
So pretty much my side of what he's saying is that we were comparing the difference between a prostitute versus a 304, which is a hoe. And a prostitute is taking payment for a service, a sexual service, right? That's what a prostitute is. Sex, money, done. We ain't gotta go to dinner. We ain't gotta hang out. We're just coming, boom, boom. A hoe is different because she gives you the impression that we're dating. I like you. We're gonna go eat. We're gonna go to the beach. We're gonna hang out. I'm your girl for the day. We're gonna do all these other things. I'm gonna make you feel like I'm into you for real, when I'm really not. Prostitute, she's not doing none of that. She's coming to your hotel or your house or wherever to give you the ass. Then she takes payment. Then she's gone. Mm-hmm. And he says he's saying that it's the same thing, and I'm saying that that's not the same thing because one is literally sexual service payment. A 304 will act like she's into you because you got a big bank account or you look like you have a big bank account. So she's going to give you all the attention that a girl that wants to date you is going to give you just to get money out of you.
Yeah. I think it's. I mean, I see. I see what my man.
We're gonna have Lead as the judge in this debate. He's gonna put his judge hat on.
I see where Isaac is coming from because from the man's side, it does look the same because on the one side the man is paying and on the other side the man is paying. So you're paying both ways. Mm-hmm. But I do agree with you, Ply, that it's a little bit different because with the prostitute, you know what you're getting and you're paying for it and you're getting it. With the hoes, you can date a hoe and you can date her for 4 months and she might not give you anything. She might not give you any ass because she's a hoe. She's just not a hoe to you.
She's just pulling out for 4 straight months.
Exactly. And then you find out that while you were dating her for 4 months, she's been sleeping with 30 other dudes, right? So she's a hoe, but you didn't get anything.
She's a hoe with you.
That's the difference. Okay. That's a big difference.
And then on the other hand, if you're one of those 30, you might be able to get the ass for cheaper than what the guy who was paying the prostitute got, right? Because she was really into you. And it could be better sex. Because if she was a hoe, maybe she chose you, maybe she was attracted to you, maybe that, that animal instinct was in her. Whereas if you just paid her money, maybe she wasn't attracted to you, you're not her type. So she's like, okay, well, I got to do this service. Mm-hmm. Whereas the hoe, like, she actually chose you, she liked you, she was attracted to you. And so you got better sex for less than what the guy got when he paid.
I still struggle with it because at the end of the day, it's an exchange. Like, the hoe is only going to give up the panties, certain type of hoes, right? Mm-hmm. It's like what you said, Gilbert Arenas. I don't mind paying because, they know what it is. He pays, like, whatever it takes her out, buys a nice this, pays for her.
Buy her a Louis Vuitton purse.
Yes, buy her, pay for her $1,000 apartment, whatever, $1,500 apartment. And guess what? When he shows up into town, He gets the ass because he's paying. Like we don't have to have this long dissertation all the time and cuddles all the time. No, when I show up, it is what it is. Why? Because he's paying.
But how don't you see the difference in one is a long-term thing, one is like bam bam. That's the difference.
It's the same. You color it like you put different lipstick on a pig. Like it is what it is. It's still,
well, to me, lunch and dinner is not the same thing.
Okay,
they're both food.
We
both eat.
We agree.
We're not hungry no more. But lunch and dinner is not the same thing.
Agree to disagree. But I think when
breakfast and dinner is not the same.
We agree to disagree. It's cool. But so you're the position they are different. At the end of the day.
Okay. I mean, I just I've seen so many men, especially you talk to these young men who are struggling with women, and there are just so many gradations because you might have a man who's 24. He's barely making anything, $19 an hour, and he could absolutely be a virgin. And not like a horrible looking guy. Maybe he's like a 6, but he's a 24-year-old. He's a 6, and he's a virgin. And so on the opposite end, you got an Isaac, right? And so Isaac can't even understand what this 24-year-old is going through, right? Like some of these hoes, they really take advantage of these men. They use them.
I've been there.
You're so full of it.
I've been there.
I've known Isaac for a long time. He's never had a problem with women.
I've been taken advantage of.
Right? Oh no, I'm talking about getting a woman. Maybe you've been taken advantage of.
I've been clearly taken advantage of.
Getting a woman, you never. Okay. Since I know you had an issue with that, because you've always been a good-looking guy. You stay in shape.
Cheers, my man.
And I've never had an issue either, so I can't even talk and say that I've had an issue. But there are a lot. I agree with you.
There are millions of men. It's really like a groundswell right now. So many men who are alone, so many men who are depressed, so many men who are, turning to porn and getting all these addictions.
Sure.
It's terrible right now for young men, which is why you see spaces like the Manosphere, your boys Fresh and Fit, why they're just so powerful, or at least so popular, because they have an audience whose needs are not being met anywhere else in the world. It's just on YouTube, just men talking to younger men who are really just struggling with women and saying, this is the reality of the situation.
Right.
And one of the solutions to these men is the Passport Bro movement. And they are getting access to women that they would just never get here in the States.
Absolutely. It's incredible. Like I said, I have traveled, and it's like when I first opened my eyes, I was like, oh my God. Like for like 25% of the cost of a trip here in the States, you can have the most amazing time in any other country, and it's absolutely incredible.
Well, let me say this too, though, because I really need to point this out. Some of these, I think a majority of the Passport Bros are really not looking for a quote unquote good time. They're really looking for love. They are looking for a girlfriend. They are looking for a potential wife that they cannot get here. And so many get taken advantage of. You go down to Sosua trying to find a wife. Man,
good luck.
But they've never had interactions with women. They don't know how women are. They think women are sugar and spice and everything nice. They can't imagine a woman taking advantage of a man. So they go down there for a week and a half. They meet
get treated like kings,
and then they come back.
Them girls got more game than guys.
Yes, and so then the guy is up here sending Western Unions, once a week to this lady, and he's I'm gonna be back in 6 months. You're gonna wait for me.
Let me tell you something.
See.
In 2010, I went to DR. I remember I've been to DR. The last time, I haven't been in a while. The last time I'm going again in October. The last time I went was in 2010, and in 2010, obviously it's 13 years ago. So I'm in my early 20s, and I met a girl in Dominican Republic. I was there. I was visiting my family. I was having a vacation, having a good time, right? And I met a lady. The first day I got there, we hang out, chilling. Obviously, I have money to spend because I'm on vacation. we go to dinner, we go, to the club, we go do things together, right? And when the vacation's over, I come back to the States. She's, texting me, hey, I need a new stove. My stove went out. Hey, I need a fridge. My fridge is not cooling anymore. Hey, it was like asking me for literally stuff that it was like, and what did I do? I hooked her up. I sent her $300 first, because over there for $300 US dollars, you could buy a stove. Sent her $300 US dollars, like whatever, $300. You know what I'm saying? After that, when she asked for the refrigerator after that, I'm like, wait a minute. This is not my girlfriend. Like, I met her over there.
Yeah.
Like, it was literally, I was there 4 days. Like, she's asking me for stuff like we're a couple.
Right.
So she's asking me for things that your girlfriend would ask you for.
100%.
Not somebody that just met you 4 days ago.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
And to be honest, my girlfriend never asked me for a stove.
Think about that. Think about that. She's asking me for a stove and a fridge.
Jesus.
And I'm like, and then when she asked for the fridge next, I was like, yo, I understand the circumstances are hard for you over there, but I don't have a responsibility towards you. You know what I mean? So I didn't send her any more money, and she never spoke to me again, because clearly
that was her interest.
This is what she was after. I'm gonna give you this good time, but when I need something that's requires money, I need you to come through. I helped her out with the stove, because then I was like, damn, man, she can't even make food. Like, I felt bad. But then I was like, okay, hold on. Next week is gonna be a car, and then the next week is gonna be a house, and then the next week is gonna be like, it's like, what the heck are we doing here? Like, you're not even my girlfriend. Like, I just met you a few days ago. I don't even know your last name. That's how bad it was.
Exactly.
So,
Exactly.
and that's how it is, especially in Dominican Republic. Those girls,
they got game.
They got game,
bro. That's in every country. You go to Cartagena, Colombia, bro. They're all, like, not all, majority are straight professionals. Yeah. They know what they are doing.
Absolutely.
They will make you think you're the first person they really hung out with, and that you paid them some money for their time. Like, they've never done this. Like, professionals. It's scary. If you don't know what you're getting into, like, going to your point, like, if you're going to look for love and you want to meet someone, man, you got to know the game, because majority in that scenario, you're just a meal ticket. And they're like, hey, how do I get papers to get back to the States? And what they know, once they're in the States, they're good. Like, they're not leaving, right? But, man, a majority, especially in those environments, like you said, Sansul, the capital, DR, like, they're up to game. They know what it is. Like, 100%. They try to get you. She was trying to get her hooks in you.
Absolutely.
And if you would have took a trip back down to
that's a wrap.
Like, it was a whole process, right? So, yeah, that's very the same. But it's scary to think what you were saying. Like,
but that's me, who had a little bit of experience with women, because I had no issues with women. I know she was attracted to me.
That's because
I was ripped, abs. I mean, I'm in good shape. I'm not an ugly dude,
right?
And I'm a young dude. Matter of fact, she was actually older than me at the time. Like, at the time, I'm in my early 20s. This woman was in her early 30s.
Wow.
So I knew she was attracted to me.
She knew what she was doing.
And she 100% knew. She was like, oh, this dude's from America. I know he has more opportunity than we got here in DR. And I'm in a poor neighborhood where I met her. A neighborhood where if I send them $500 a month, that's huge.
Yeah. Right. No, it's a game changer.
Yeah.
But Lead, we also got into the topic about legacy, right? A big term, especially, not only in the African American community, generational wealth and that whole concept. And we were talking, I'm a big, I grew up in the Bronx. I grew up poor. Like, I'm the high achiever in my family, right? The college graduate and all this kind of thing. And for me, my mindset is I want to leave a legacy. I want to, why only the Fords can be the Fords and the Rockefellers can be the Rockefellers. Like, it has to start with someone, right? Like, and I feel like it's going to start with me. The challenge is, how do you leave for the next generation, your kids, and make sure they don't fuck it up and just blow it right? So the Vanderbilts, richest people in the world, within 3 generations, blew their fortune. The Rockefellers, on the other hand, they're 4, 5, 6, 7 generations in, and they're still multi-billionaires, right? But how, that hope, for me, is a mindset, right? So a quick story. When my daughter was going to school, I drove a beat up Nissan Maxima, freaking had no vinyl top. It was like metal. Ding, 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 ding. You can hit the metal. And I remember always thinking, like, when I dropped off my daughter at school, I wanted her friends to say, hey, man, her parents, must be like good with money, or hey, their parents are rich, right?
Yeah, nice.
And so that to me, because of my background, if you saw someone like that, like I went from the Bronx to Florida, and I was 16, 17, and I go from the Bronx, the hood, to Florida, where I see these 16, 17-year-olds driving new cars, and I was like, they're not selling drugs, and they're driving new cars, and like their family must be rich, like that was my mindset. So, when I had my daughter, 20 years ago, I was like, man, one day, and it happened for me, right? I got to that point. But the whole idea behind that is creating a legacy for the future generations. I want to be able that going to college is a normal thing for my kids. Being successful, be a high income earner. These, having money, quote unquote money, it's the norm, not the exception. We had a brief conversation. You said, my wife is like, hey, whatever we have for retirement, we're going to spend that shit. We're going to buy the boat. We're going to travel the world, and we'll leave something for the kids, and they got to figure it out. I'm the opposite. Like, no, hey, I want to set something up where when the kids come around, like, they're going to have access to these funds and do something, whatever. But talk about your position, because I think you're of the mindset of, fuck it, I'm spending this shit before I'm gone.
Yeah, I'm not naturally like that. There are 2 types of people in the world. There are really spenders and there are savers, right? And I'm normally a saver. And I read this book by this black guy named Bill Perkins. And the book is Die with Zero. And his premise is that you should really try to die with no money in the bank, like spend it all while you are here. And this is a very successful gentleman, hundreds of millions of dollars.
Does he have children?
He has children.
Okay.
He has children. And he is friends and has connections with just the brightest minds in the country. And he really wrote this book for everybody, because Lord knows he doesn't need to sell a book for $15 a book, right? Right. And he had a lot of smart people read the book and give him feedback on this thesis. But his point is very powerful. We in this culture, we're presented with a lot of ideals that we should try to strive for, but we don't ever really dig down and analyze them. So you say, well, I want to leave a legacy. But what is that? You say, well, I want to leave money. But is leaving money a real legacy? It would be better, and this isn't really in the book, this is just us talking, but when I hear a man like you, a successful man, say he wants to leave a legacy, I would think that really way more important than leaving a money, than let's say leaving your kids money or paying for your kids college tuition, or leaving your kids a nice car or whatever, is really to instill the values in them so that they can get it themselves. But whenever you hear people talking about leaving a legacy, you never hear about parents talking about instilling those values so that they can get it. You say, oh, well, I want to leave my child a trust fund, or I want to leave my child a business.
They're just giving them stuff.
Just giving them
right,
stuff.
That's not
and
the
if
same.
you know anything about humanity and the human condition, giving people shit that they never work for, it doesn't work.
Don't blow it.
It doesn't work.
Agreed.
But when people say they want to leave a legacy, that's what they're really saying. They want to leave their children material things which they know doesn't work.
Right.
But if you're a good parent, what do you want? You want to make life easier for your child. You want to make it so that your child doesn't have to struggle. But how many people are really successful and they never had to struggle? How many people really are really successful, right? Instead of making their paths easier, a lot of times I think parents would do well to really think about making their children make their own path by leaving a little less, right? You hear Warren Buffett say, I'm
giving away a
my kids
majority of his
nothing.
money.
I'm 98%, 99%. You know, my kid will get this or that, but it's gone, you know? You don't think Warren Buffett wants to leave his kids a legacy? No, Warren Buffett knows these kids have to make it. You know, you guys made it. That's one thing. Now, suppose you say, well, you know, I still want my children to be set up. What people don't realize is instead of you working years and years and years to save up all this money to dump on your children when you die as an inheritance. Money, by the way, that we've already said they're really not going to appreciate. Money that they're going to fight over. Brothers and sisters, family members are always fighting over money in this damn inheritance. Why not just have a life insurance policy? Life insurance policy, here's $3 million. How much is that going to cost you? $30 a month, $50 a month? Life insurance is so cheap. And then instead of hoarding all that money for years, spend it on yourself. And spend it on yourself in your younger years. You know, Bill Perkins pointed out in the book that as you get older, not only do you make more money, but you spend less money.
Yep.
You know, you're taking all these trips now, you're in great shape, but you're probably not going to be taking these same trips when you're 85.
Not at all.
You know?
I agree. I agree with everything you just said.
I have life insurance policy, but say I'm 47, a 30-year policy, which is, you know, fairly cheap. You can have millions of dollars. At 77, policies are over, right? But if I live to 85, I have to have assets at that point. If I pass at 90 to pass on, you know, it's going to be hard for me to get life insurance at 70, or it's going to be, you know, astronomical, the cost of life insurance at 75,
because
right?
You're living on borrowed time at that point.
Right. So, you know, I'm 85. I want to leave assets, and my thinking in my case is, okay, you know what? I have 30-year policies. Knock on wood, I outlive my policies. But if I don't, my family's taken care of. They're good. And I have, you know, in my case, I have trust in place with specific rules and how the money's gonna be handled. But if I make it to 90, I'm not gonna have life insurance policies. I'm gonna outlast a majority of the policies. And at 90, I believe I would have assets at that point that I can say, hey, this is what I wanna leave for the future generations under these conditions. Right. I think I agree 100%. You can't just be like, hey, here's $1 million, kid.
But that's what some of these folks do.
Good luck. You know, like figure it, you know what I mean? Like, no, they're gonna fucking blow it. Like, yes.
Absolutely.
But the idea or the concept to say future generations will be able to go to college debt free, purchase real estate, start a business, you know, have those things in place because you could have 2 kids. One is zero motivated, zero, ambition, like zero. Like, okay, you have things in place where if you don't meet these markers, you don't have access to it. But if you have one that's a high achiever and says, yeah, you know what, I am going to med school. I got accepted to med school, but med school costs $150,000. Well, the trust comes in and pays for the med school. And hey, I graduated med school and I want to start a practice. Well, the trust fund here funds the beginning of that. You know what I mean? Like, there's things you can put in place, and guess what? Your name will continue. And that's the way I see it. I want to be able to do that, like, for my future generations. And my wife is like, hey, let's spend this shit and we'll leave enough for them to get started in life.
I totally agree with your wife. You know, let's say you're talking about 90, right? So from here to 90, it's nothing for you to save up $300,000 from here to 90. What's that, like $10,000 a year, something like that, right? If your child can't make it with $300,000 cash, they're not going to make it with $3 million.
Exactly.
They're not going to make it with $3 million. And if you instill in your child the work ethic and the drive, you know, the delayed gratification, and on top of all these traits, $300,000 cash, something that you didn't receive when you were young and you
Sure.
made it, right? You have the drive and the sacrifice, but imagine you with that and then an additional $300,000 cash. Why does everybody say, I want to leave my child a company like the Rockefellers or something like that? No, it's not necessary. It's not necessary to have productive, healthy, and happy children. At the end of the day, as a parent, and I'm speaking out of turn here because I'm not a parent, but I'm just going to assume what every parent wants is a happy child. Not necessarily the most successful, not necessarily the most rich, but just a happy, satisfied child. If you can't get a happy, satisfied child with $300,000 in cash, maybe a little rental house, and drive and determination, it doesn't matter if you give them $3 million.
Yeah, I mean, again, you project what you want, right? Like, so in my mind is like, well, what if? Because you're completely right. You might have a non-achiever, unmotivated child, and it doesn't matter if you give them 3 million or 300. But what if the child is a highly motivated? It's like, you know what? I want that.
Then they would get it themselves.
Exactly.
Look at the high motivated people. They get it themselves.
They get it themselves. That's the point.
It's like a contradiction.
You don't have to give it to those type of people.
The more motivated they are, the less you have to give them.
Nobody had to give it to you.
Tell them.
That's the whole point.
They're easy names to know, right? Mm-hmm. So on YouTube, the NFL draft is coming up, and the Detroit Lions have a thing on YouTube, right? Mm-hmm. And so they show the draft and the general manager, and they have the war room and who they're picking and the draft.
Is it Hard Knocks?
No. It's specific for the YouTube channel for the Detroit Lions.
Okay.
So the general manager, they're screaming, yelling, whatever. They pick so and so in the first round. There's this little old white lady on the side of the clapping, screaming, and the general manager calls, "Hey, congratulations, you're a Lion. Let me put you on the phone with the owner." And she grabs the phone. "Hey, Johnny Smith, we're so glad to have you." Guess what? Her last name? Ford. Like Henry Ford.
Wow.
Okay. Generational. Generational. Like, Coño, man, why we can't do that? Like, why? Michael Jordan, I guarantee you, if Michael Jordan dies, his kids, the Nike brand, this, that, the other, that brand is going to continue to make billions of dollars.
I'm so glad you brought that up because we're not born with generational wealth and we don't have it yet. So we're looking at it from the outside and we're thinking, once they get generational wealth, then they're going to be happy. Right? Because that's what you really want at the end of the day for your child. You want your child to be happy.
Sure.
Right? More than anything.
You can be broke and happy. I know a lot of broke, happy families.
Yes, but you would rather your child have less money and be happy than have more money and be wretched.
Sure.
You bring up Michael Jordan's son. What is Michael Jordan's son doing?
Nothing.
Michael Jordan, generational wealth and Nike. What is he doing?
But he has a daughter
He's
also.
having sex with
Scottie Pippen's daughter.
Ex-wife.
Scottie
Pippen's ex-wife.
Yes. Scottie Pippen's wife.
Generational wealth doesn't fix that. You cannot say this man is happier than us. You can't. Even though he's got long money, he's got that Nike money. And we're like, it must be great. But are they happier?
No, and I forgot who I told. I said, look, I did immigration for 10 years, right? I've seen families of 5 or 6 that fucking poor, but love each other, and the entire family does everything possible to make it through, right? And they're 100% happy. Like, money doesn't equal happiness. I don't. That's not the concept for me. Like, I'm not thinking that because you have money you're gonna be happy. To me, the opportunity. You can be rich and be fucking miserable. You can be poor and miserable. But I know, because I lived it. Coño, man. Like, if you don't have to worry about the light bill, it's a little less stressful. If you don't have to worry about is the mortgage and the food going to be paid, it's a little less stressful, right? I'm not to the point where I don't have to worry about payroll. I have to still worry about payroll. It's very stressful. But there's certain levels that you get to where, hey, my stress now is regarding shareholders. You know, like that is the level. Why my family cannot get to that level where my stress is payroll for 20, 25 employees, where the next generation's stress level is going to be like, hey, we have a quarterly statement due in 3 weeks and we got to report to the SEC and what we're doing for the shareholders. Coño, man, that's a whole different level. Why my family can't do that? Why? Now, if they're going to be happy or not happy, money doesn't make that determination. They can be poor and very happy, or they can be rich and not happy. Like, that doesn't make the determination. That doesn't mean I can't try to create the legacy that creates the opportunity, because they clearly could shit it away.
Well, let's talk about that though, because you want to create opportunity, and that makes sense. But we all know there are limits. And you say, well, I want to be like the Fords. I want to create this generational wealth. You're creating too many opportunities. They don't need that much, and you're sacrificing your own happiness for it. If you walk into the store and you want to buy a pair of shoes, it's nice if they have 15 pair, 30 pair. What if they had 3,000 pair? 3,000 pair of shoes. You couldn't find the ones that you want. Yeah. That's what you're thinking. You're like, oh, I want to give my family
unlimited.
Yes. And what you're not realizing is that first of all the studies show that when you give people too many options, it causes more stress. It actually causes a reduction in the happiness that you're trying to seek. But apart from that, it's coming at your cost, because the money that you are getting, you can put it towards your own life. You're putting it towards making extra opportunities that are going to reduce your family's happiness, because no one needs to walk into a store with 3,000 shoes.
You imagine.
Right?
That's crazy.
And you're doing at the cost of your hard work. You talk about payroll, making payroll is stressful, right? But you're making payroll so you can get that money. Instead of being under that stress and then enjoying that money, you're locking that money away for the future. So one, it can get fucked off, or two, it can create too many opportunities. And you say, well, payroll is really stressful for me. You know, I want to create opportunities so that my family has a higher level of stress. I promise you, there are people, like you were saying, is a light bill going to be paid? That's stressful. But is payroll going to be paid? The feeling, it's the same. And now you want to say, okay, well, I'm good. My family's going to have all this money. Well, now they're in a $30 million lawsuit. That stress is the same. You didn't have to worry about the $30 million lawsuit when you didn't know if your lights were going to be on, but it's the same stress. Humans are going to find stress at every level. No matter what opportunities you give them, they're going to seek it out. They're going to find it. Yep. And
so let me ask you this, or it applied to either one. So like PBD, right? He had his insurance company. They cut him a $200 million, $300 million check for his company, right? And he's talked about that. He's meeting with legacy planners to see how he's going to handle this wealth. If someone says, you know what? The lead attorney channel, I want to buy it for $200 million, and now it's 5 years down the road, and you have a child that you're nurturing and growing, and you get a $200 million check. Do you feel like you can say, you know what, I'm gonna blow this shit, and I'll leave you a little $500,000, and little lead got to figure it out from that point? You would that's the position you would take?
Well, you don't want to blow any of it. You want to use it for your satisfaction.
For sure. That's what I mean when I say you spend it to your enjoyment.
Correct. But they're just like you said, $200 million, no one can use that money in their lifetime, right? But another problem that parents have, or another misconception that Bill Perkins talked about in the book, is that parents want to leave their children all this money when they die, when they're old, right? And so it could be, if you live to 90, how old is your child? 60? Oh, so congratulations. Now you're a fucking 60-year-old who might have bad knees, might have a bad hip. Now she gets these millions of dollars. That's not the right way to think about it. You would have been better taking that money and pouring it into your child when she was young, when she was 17, it can go on that Europe field trip, or when she's 24 and wants to start her own business, when she's 26 and wants to get these rental houses. If you're 65, what can you do with $3 million?
What is your take then? Like, I hate to say it, a lot of white families, right? Grandkid is born. The day they're born, granddad and grandma open an account for the grandkid for college or whatever. Just
I love that.
The mentality. No, but it's my idea of the mentality is, man, you got mom, dad, you take it. No, hey, for his future, I'm granddad. I'm opening an account for Little Lead. Right? Mm-hmm. Little Lead the third, my grandchild, I'm opening an account for him because when he gets to college and his future, it's just the mindset of creating future opportunities for his legacy. He's thinking about his grandchild. We're not talking about even kid. But how many I've met or whatever, oh, my granddad left me an inheritance. My granddad opened an account and had my college paid for. My granddad, you know what I mean? Like, it's just the mentality that for me, I see the struggle. Like, my father has 6 grandkids. He's like, what do you need me to save money for your kid for?
I think that you should just leave your kids the tools to be able to do for themselves. Like, the majority should be spent on yourself based on what you've worked so hard to build and to get and enjoy yourself along the way. And I think that you should just leave them just the tools for them to be able to be successful. Not leave them a fortune, not leave them 50% of what you made or even 30% of what you made. I think you should just leave them with the tools that they need in order to be successful, and they're gonna on their own, like, give them what they need, like, teach them how to be successful. Teach them, look, this is what you need to do. What is it that you want to do? What is it that you enjoy? All right, cool, we're gonna start a business. You're gonna run it, but I'm gonna start your business, but now this is gonna be your thing. Not just, here's $1 million or here's $50 million, because I think that's gonna be blown.
Yeah, I mean, but say if you have a grandchild, would you, in your mindset right now, as of today, would you think of opening an account for the grandchild and investing money for that grandchild?
I wouldn't do it I think that's a parent's job.
Okay, boom. So for me, that mentality is the difference between, white people think differently, man. White people with money think differently.
I think you're giving white people too much credit, or I don't think you're really, because white people are smart about their money. A lot of white people know not to overgive. You're thinking, oh, they're white people, so they just want to give everything, and that is not true. There are some very stingy white people with a lot of money that say, no, you are only going to get this and this and this. I'll pay for your little car, your Corolla at 16, and I'll pay for your tuition at UGA. That's it. If you want to go to law school, I'll pay half, but I'm not going to pay everything. Like, I don't think a lot of white people are on game.
That in itself, what you just laid out is hundreds of thousands of dollars. Like, you gotta have money to do that.
You're gonna have that by the time you're
But that's what I'm saying. The whole concept is just the mentality. Like, grandchild is born, I'm gonna start an account for my grandchild, because guess what, I want to provide more opportunities. So the way I spoke to a partner of mine, and I said, look, I make sure my bills are paid, I save for my retirement, and I save for extra stuff that I want. After that, I blow my money. I go on trips, As long as I have those things covered, bills are paid, retirement's taken care of, and I have some savings. After that, whatever extra, I can go blow on a trip, do whatever I want, buy whatever. But those priorities are first taken care of. If I can't take care of those 3 priorities, I'm not taking the trip. I got to first take care of these priorities, right? So if I'm able to do that, what's wrong with saying, hey, for the future, or however I want to design it. If my business is creating wealth and doing this, like, I'm gonna designate X amount of dollars. I just think it's more of a mentality I find when it comes to creating generational wealth or future, income for the future. I think you're 100% correct. If you lay it out too easy, they don't give a shit about it.
They don't.
Facts.
But
That's how it is with everything.
you gotta
Easy money or quick money goes fast.
But the more complex scenarios, there are things you can put in place. Like I have a trust for my older daughter. There's certain markers she has to hit. If I'm not here, that she has to hit to have access to those funds.
See, that's the thing. Now, let me jump in too, because attorneys who do trust in estates, they all know this. And this is some BS that white people used to do a ton in the 80s and 90s and still do it. They call it the hand from the grave. You want to be in that goddamn coffin, but you want to reach out and control what your daughter does. So what does she do? You say maybe she wants to start a business. She doesn't want to go to college. She doesn't want to finish. But she has to do the extra 2 years in college. So now she's suffering to get the money to go to college. And then you say, oh, well, I was an attorney. I wanted to go to law school. And now if she goes to law school, now she's entitled to this extra money. So now you're incentivizing her to waste another 3 years that she did not want. 3 years that you wanted for her. You're trying to control her to live her life in a way that you wanted it. Right? And that's what white people, they were big in the 80s and 90s for doing this stuff, right? But, we're like, you should want your child to be instilled with the value so that they can choose their own way. Like, oh, I was a pharmacist. I want my child to be a pharmacist. What if your child doesn't want to be a pharmacist, right?
I agree.
What if she doesn't want to get her postdoc? What if she doesn't want to go to college? My man applied. You can these kids on social media, 20, 21, making tons of money. They ain't got no damn college degree.
Right.
But she's like, well, Daddy Isaac said I need to get this money to go to college and this and that. Right. I mean, really thinking these things out. Not just saying, okay, well, this is how I feel, but really sitting down and analyzing it. Is this the optimal way for my child? I think a lot of times parents put their own desires on a pedestal and say, well, this is what I want. Maybe it's an ego thing, right? Maybe it's, to have the knowledge that they did the most that they could and try to protect their children the most that they can. But we all know the dangers of an overprotective parent.
Right.
You can be an overprotective parent in behavior,
1,000%.
but you can be an overprotective parent financially.
Sure.
And when you talk about the Rockefellers and all that, that's what's lacking. The fact that you can be an overprotective parent financially at the cost of your own happiness. Now, if you say, hey, I'm taking all the trips that I can and I want to put a little money on the side, like, no one's going to blame you for that, right? But it's when you're putting tons of money and sacrificing your own happiness. So if you were not taking trips and you were working 80 hours a week, and just hoarding money for your daughter, that's when parents are really in the danger zone. You're not even close. You're taking trips. You're living your life. You're having fun. So you're doing great. But it's just there's an instinct. We talk about the passport bros going down to the Dominican Republic because they have an instinct to want to be loved, right? And they get taken advantage of or they get results that are not optimal. There is an instinct in parents to overprotect their children. And in that overprotection, whether it's behavior or whether it's financial, they're really not getting the results that they want.
I agree with you 1,000%. Yes. Hey, guys, we're gonna wrap it up. Lee, thank you so much. We can keep going for a few hours. But hey, we want to thank the lead attorney for showing up at the Stop the Madness podcast.
Thank you Hey, let me shake your hand, man. It was a pleasure meeting you.
Thank you so much. Thank you for coming up.
Yes.
Anytime, brother.
Everybody, please. Like, subscribe, comment below, comment, let's argue, let's talk about it.
Yes.
And we're going to see you next week. Peace.
Peace.
Thank you.
We out.
Baila de